Sometimes, our lives don't go in the direction we had hoped, and certain people pass through leaving more wounds than good memories. Not always because we wanted them to, but because we insisted, because we believed, endured, waited. And when it all ends, one question remains. How do you forget someone like that? Forgetting has nothing to do with erasing. It has everything to do with releasing, letting go of what hurts, without needing to make sense of every detail. It's about stepping out of the role of someone waiting for closure, and stepping into the place of someone choosing peace. Sometimes it's not the feeling that holds you back, it's the habit. The name you got used to repeating inside your head. The space that person occupied in everything you did. And what once felt like love becomes noise. An echo that only fades when you finally choose silence within. You don't forget someone by trying to erase memories. You forget them by building a life where they no longer belong. When what once hurt no longer fits the person you've become. Healing doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't follow a straight line. And it definitely doesn't follow anyone else's timing but your own. When you're trying to forget someone who hurt you, the first truth to accept is this: you won't wake up one day and simply feel nothing. The ache fades in layers, not in leaps. You're allowed to take your time. There's no finish line to reach, no should to obey. Some days you'll feel like you're finally free, and on others, a single thought might pull you back. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're healing. It means your heart is still catching up with what your mind already knows, that it's over. Progress doesn't have to look impressive. Sometimes it's just not checking their profile, not thinking about what you'd say if you saw them again, not feeling the need to reimagine the ending. These are victories, quiet ones but real. And every small step deserves recognition, because in silence, you're rebuilding. Give yourself room to feel without rushing to get over it. Emotions need space to breathe before they can settle. If you try to speed up the process, you'll only carry the weight longer. So be kind, be patient. And when setbacks happen, and they will, don't treat them like a return to the beginning. They're part of the way forward. They mean you're still moving. For some, that path can feel too heavy to walk alone, and there's no shame in that. Sometimes healing asks for more than time. It asks for guidance. Therapy isn't a last resort. It's a way to feel seen, to understand yourself with more clarity. A good therapist doesn't tell you to forget faster. They help you make sense of what still hurts and why it hurts the way it does. If one-on-one isn't for you, shared spaces can help. Group therapy offers something many don't expect: connection. Hearing that someone else has been where you are now brings comfort that books and silence can't. You realize you're not the only one trying to let go of a name that still echoes inside. Support doesn't erase the pain, but it softens the edges. It reminds you that healing isn't weakness, it's courage. Structured help can offer new tools, better ways to cope, and language for things you couldn't name before. And when the noise of the past finally begins to fade, you'll be ready to face the triggers that once held you back. Sometimes, what keeps the pain alive isn't the memory itself, but the way you avoid looking directly at what it made you feel. After recognizing the pace of your healing, the next step is learning to acknowledge your feelings without rushing to fix them or explain them away. Avoidance builds walls, truth opens doors. There's a quiet kind of strength in simply admitting, I was hurt, not to others, to yourself. That simple recognition, said without defense or justification, has the power to disarm the chaos within. When you stop minimizing what happened or comparing your pain to someone else's, something subtle begins to shift. You realize that sadness, anger, fear, or even numbness, they all came from somewhere. They're not mistakes, they're messengers. There are emotions that don't need fixing, they just need to be heard. When you allow yourself to feel what's there, without shame or pressure to move on, you begin to meet yourself with honesty. That's where clarity lives. You're not being dramatic for still feeling something. You're simply honoring a part of you that hasn't had the chance to speak. Most people are taught to keep things in, to stay strong, to smile through discomfort, to look unbothered. But nothing buried ever really disappears. It waits, it collects, and eventually it surfaces in ways that confuse even you. That's why acknowledging your feelings is not a luxury. It's a need. Start small. Name what you feel, even if it sounds messy or incomplete. Write it down. Speak it out loud. Let the words fall out without needing them to be pretty. Journaling, even in fragments, gives shape to the weight inside you. And when thoughts are no longer locked in silence, they begin to lose their power over you. There's also strength in being heard. Sometimes you don't need advice. You just need someone who won't interrupt. Whether it's a close friend or a therapist, being reminded that your emotions matter can create a safety you didn't know you were missing. Being validated doesn't solve the pain, but it dissolves the loneliness around it. And then there's the part no one tells you. The impact of what happened goes deeper than the story itself. It touches how you see yourself, how you value your voice, how you allow people to treat you. So when you acknowledge your feelings, you're not just admitting pain, you're reclaiming your worth. Once your emotions begin to take shape and are finally allowed to exist without being silenced, the next turning point is learning to care for yourself in a way that reflects that inner truth. After acknowledging your feelings, it's time to focus on self-care, not as an escape from pain, but as a deliberate act of restoration. Caring for yourself after being hurt isn't a luxury. It's part of rebuilding what was broken inside. When someone leaves, they don't just leave your life. They leave behind spaces where parts of you used to feel safe. Self-care is how you begin to fill those spaces with something softer, something that belongs to you. Movement helps the body remember that it's still alive, still capable of forward motion. You don't need an intense routine. Gentle walks, light stretching, or simply standing outside for a few minutes can remind your nervous system that you're not stuck. Even subtle movement tells the body you're moving again, even if your heart hasn't caught up yet. Focusing your mind on something that isn't the pain can offer unexpected relief. Hobbies are not distractions, they're redirections. Activities you enjoy help you build a rhythm that doesn't revolve around who hurt you. Painting, baking, learning a new skill, cleaning your space. These small actions become anchors when the mind wants to drift back to what was lost. Stillness can heal too. Practicing mindfulness or meditation isn't about clearing your mind. It's about allowing your thoughts to pass without chasing them. Sitting quietly, breathing with intention, or writing down what you're feeling creates a pause between reaction and reflection. These moments become small rooms of peace in a day that might otherwise feel loud. Healing becomes lighter when you don't try to carry it all alone. Building a support system matters, not because you're incapable, but because you're human. Being heard without judgment, sitting with someone who doesn't rush your process, being around people who don't try to fix you, but simply hold space. These are forms of care that speak louder than advice. Social connection reminds you of your own aliveness. It doesn't have to be deep conversation, a shared meal, a walk with a friend, a quiet evening in someone else's presence. These moments say, you are still here, and you are not invisible. Support groups can also be a powerful mirror. In those spaces, you hear parts of your story in someone else's voice. You feel less strange, less alone. There is comfort in realizing you are not the only one trying to forget a name that once felt like home. Being surrounded by others who understand doesn't erase the pain, but it gives it context. What you consume emotionally also matters. The people you spend time with, the voices you follow, the words you listen to, all shape the atmosphere around your healing. Surrounding yourself with those who choose peace, who laugh fully, who walk through life with honesty and lightness, that's not avoidance. That's medicine. Your routine can become a gentle structure. Simple things, repeated with care, eating on time, getting rest, putting away your phone when it becomes too much. These aren't grand achievements, but they form a foundation that slowly rebuilds your stability. Self-care often starts in the smallest acts, repeated without pressure. Sometimes self-care is saying no. No to people who drain you. No to thoughts that tear you down. No to the version of yourself that believes you are hard to love. Choosing peace over chaos, quiet over drama, healing over reopening. These are forms of strength that no one sees but you feel deeply. And sometimes, self-care is allowing joy back in, even when it feels unfamiliar. Laughing again, looking forward to something, letting yourself feel light, even if just for a moment. These moments don't mean you've forgotten what happened. They mean you're choosing not to let it control what happens next. Focusing on self-care is not selfish, it's survival with softness. It's proof that even when someone failed to care for your heart, you are still willing to protect it. Not for anyone else, but for yourself. After investing time in self-care, there comes a moment when healing asks for something more direct, something that protects the peace you're beginning to rebuild. That's when you need to set boundaries, not as a form of punishment or pride, but as a way of saying, this is where I stop losing myself. Some wounds don't heal because the door is still open. You might not talk to them anymore, but maybe they still see your stories. Maybe they still send you messages. Maybe their name still pops up in a group chat. Boundaries begin when you stop giving access to people who only take. Closing a door doesn't need a speech. You can unfollow, you can mute, you can block. These actions aren't petty, they're practical. They're ways of choosing your own voice over the noise of someone who already made too much damage. Reducing contact isn't cruelty, it's clarity. Your space holds more memory than you think. Sometimes it's not the message that hurts. It's the hoodie in your drawer, the playlist you haven't skipped, the picture that's still framed like nothing ever happened. Removing these reminders isn't about pretending it didn't exist. It's about not letting it take up space in your present. There's power in being invisible to what no longer deserves your energy. Adjusting your social media, stepping back from mutual spaces, or simply not checking anymore, these are decisions that protect your balance. Healing needs distance, and distance isn't avoidance. It's where silence starts to do its work. Setting boundaries isn't just about others, it's also about you. It's in the way you choose what thoughts you entertain. It's the way you stop rereading old messages or revisiting timelines that no longer belong to you. Every time you redirect your attention, you're reinforcing the message that your peace is no longer negotiable. It also means deciding what you'll no longer accept, not just from others, but from yourself. No more late-night overthinking. No more bending your own needs to accommodate someone else's absence. No more shrinking to stay connected. Boundaries begin with the moment you choose yourself, without apology. Some people confuse boundaries with anger. But real boundaries come from wisdom. You're not cutting ties because you hate them. You're cutting ties because you love yourself enough to stop reopening what was already closed. Redirecting your focus doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means building something real outside of what broke. Setting personal goals, ones that aren't connected to anyone else, helps you remember who you are when you're not trying to heal from something. New skills, new habits, new places, even if small, remind you that you are not frozen in time. Start with something that feels yours, not shared, not tainted. A new book, a new walk, a new challenge. Even the act of choosing something for yourself is a step toward freedom. Growth doesn't need to be dramatic. It just needs to be yours. Looking back, without getting stuck, is part of the process. Reflect on what the relationship showed you, not just about them, but about yourself. What did you ignore? What did you accept out of fear? What did you give that you should have saved? These questions don't hurt. They reveal. Every boundary you set today helps prevent the same pain tomorrow. And not because you're scared, but because you've learned. This time your healing is protected. This time you know what to allow and what to end before it costs your peace. Setting boundaries is not a moment. It's a series of decisions. Each one says, I'm not going to live in reaction to what happened. I'm going to choose what happens next. You don't have to explain these choices. You just have to live them. And somewhere in that space you protected, something new begins to grow. Not because you rushed the process, but because you stopped giving pieces of yourself to what didn't return them. After setting boundaries and protecting your space, something begins to feel different. Quieter. Lighter. But healing doesn't end in silence. It continues in motion. And this is the part where you begin to move forward, not by forgetting everything that happened, but by no longer allowing it to hold the same power over what comes next. There's something sacred about starting fresh, even in small ways. You don't need a dramatic shift or a completely new life. You just need moments that aren't built around what broke you. Making new memories doesn't mean pretending the old ones didn't exist. It means giving yourself permission to create better ones from here on. Choose something that feels unfamiliar but safe. It might be a place you've never visited, or a class you've always been curious about. When you step into a new environment, even briefly, your body gets to experience life without the weight of old routines, and that feeling, however fleeting, reminds you that joy is still possible. Let yourself laugh, not because everything's fixed, but because joy doesn't need permission. Spend time with people who bring out your most natural self. Plan something simple with friends, a walk, a day trip, even just coffee in a new part of town. These moments don't erase the past, they soften it. Your time is precious, so fill it with things that return your energy, not drain it. Hobbies, creative outlets, slow mornings or long drives with no destination. Let discovery replace repetition. Let wonder be your new rhythm. When you choose joy intentionally, healing becomes something you live, not just something you hope for. Moving forward also means learning how to reflect on the future without dragging the past into it. Your story doesn't have to repeat itself. You can shift your perspective from what happened to me to what I'm building now. That shift changes everything. Take time to think about the kind of life you want, without trying to fit someone else into it. Who are you when you're not reacting to loss? What kind of peace do you want to wake up to? What version of you deserves the front seat now? You don't need all the answers. Just start asking better questions. Realistic expectations are part of moving on. You might still feel the urge to rush into something new, just to feel something different. But clarity takes root in patience. Let your healing shape the way you connect next. Let it teach you the difference between attention and intention. Every painful ending leaves behind lessons. Use them. Don't carry the bitterness, carry the wisdom. Know what to protect, know what to give, and most importantly, know when to walk away without turning it into a performance. Quiet exits are just as powerful as loud ones. You might still miss them. That doesn't mean you should go back. Missing is a feeling, returning is a decision. One passes through you, the other rewrites everything you've built. Learn to sit with the ache without answering its call. That's strength too. Healing doesn't mean you'll never think of them again. It means their memory no longer decides how your day goes. It means you can remember without spiraling. You can acknowledge the pain without living inside it. You can move forward without dragging the past like a shadow. New beginnings don't always announce themselves. Sometimes they look like peace, like waking up and not checking your phone, like walking into a room and not scanning for their name, like laughing and realizing it was real. That's progress. That's freedom becoming familiar. As you move forward, you'll notice something else. You've changed. The version of you that tolerated confusion, that stayed too long, that apologized for feeling too much, that version gave way to someone softer and stronger. And even if you're still healing, you're already becoming someone who protects what matters most, your peace. Keep choosing yourself. In every conversation, in every decision, in every quiet moment where you're tempted to look back, choose the version of you who didn't give up, who kept going, who allowed themselves to feel, to break, to rebuild. That's who you are now. And if there are days when it still hurts, let it. Healing isn't about perfection. It's about honesty. It's about continuing to live fully, even with a heart that remembers. Moving forward is not erasing the past. It's proving to yourself that you are more than what happened to you. If this message spoke to you, if something in these words felt like it was meant for you, consider subscribing to the channel. Here, we talk about real healing, deep emotional growth, and the kind of transformation that doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. Thank you for watching.